Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another edition of Budget Magic. So this week, we are actually heading to Standard. We're heading to Standard, see if we can take down the big two decks with a deck that I've been trying to make work for a long time. This is Inspiring U-Drazi, basically an Inspiring Statuary colorless Eldrazi deck, and it's super sweet. As you can see, only $67 in the paper world, 45 ticks on Magic Online. A quick reminder before we break down the deck. If you enjoy this deck and you enjoy Budget Magic in general, it would be amazing of you if you could take a quick second, click that subscribe button down in the corner of your screen. It's a great way to support the channel and the site for free. So let's talk Inspiring U-Drazi, and Inspiring Statuary is one of my favorite cards. It just looks so powerful. Giving all non-artifact spells improvise basically turns into this crazy ramp spell. Not only does it tap for a mana itself, because it is an artifact, so you can tap it for improvise, but it turns all your other artifacts into mana rocks on top of whatever else they're doing. So this is the card I've really wanted to build around for a long time, and one of the first things I thought of as far as making this card powerful is colorless Eldrazi. So Eldrazi are weird because they're colorless, which makes you think artifacts, but they're like the one exception that is colorless cards that are also not artifacts. So you can take and tap all your artifacts and theoretically cast big colorless Eldrazi purely by tapping your artifacts. You don't even really need to spend any real mana. So one of the challenges with this deck was figuring out what artifacts to use, and I built this deck a few different times. In my initial attempts were to go all in on Inspiring Statuary, to play servo schematics and puzzle knots and just all these bad artifacts, with the idea being to get as many artifacts on the battlefield as soon as possible. But there was a big problem with that, and the problem with going that route is sometimes you don't draw Inspiring Statuary, and then you look really silly when you have these big Eldrazi in your hand, and you're casting servo schematics and stuff like that that don't really work with the plan. So what finally made the deck work was realizing that we could play Inspiring Statuary and play all good artifacts and not need to really have 20 artifacts on the battlefield for Inspiring Statuary to be good. Even just 2 or 3 artifacts is really powerful. So the best synergy, my favorite synergy in the deck, is Key to the City, which not only is an artifact that we can tap for mana, but it draws us an extra card every turn by paying 2 mana, so it becomes like our personal Howling Mine, because we can tap it along with Inspiring Statuary, cast a Thought-Knot Seer or whatever, and then when it untaps, we get to draw a card by paying 2 mana. So it's super good with improvise, and we skip over the discard a card part of it. So rather than just looting, we are actually generating card advantage with the combo of improvise and Key to the City, and in a pinch, we can always make a big Eldrazi unblockable to close out the game, but mostly it's there to generate card advantage and give us a good artifact to improvise. Prophetic Prism is not great. It's mostly just an extra 2-drop. Our deck is really lacking in 2-drops. We have the Key to the City. I wanted more things to do at 2 mana. So Prophetic Prism, I mean, it's an artifact. It cycles. It doesn't have any real purpose. It's basically a 2 mana artifact that we can eventually tap with Inspiring Statuary that draws us a card when it enters the battlefield. And then one Deadlock Trap is just a way to fight against Planeswalkers. It can shut down like Chandra's, Saheeli Rise, stuff like that by activating it on our opponent's upkeep. So it's just kind of a hedge there. It's not great, but it's another artifact that we can tap, and it has some additional upside in helping us stay alive. So that's kind of the mana plan. As far as the Eldrazi plan, we have a few different options. So Matter Reshaper is our early game Eldrazi. Normally we're not really using Matter Reshaper with Inspiring Statuary. We're just kind of playing it. It blocks once, sometimes twice if we hit another creature off of it, gets us a land, just a lot of value for 3 mana. Thought-Knot Seer is super good because it gets at our opponent's hand. It can take out a Felidar Guardian, take out a Planeswalker removal spell, whatever's messing us up, and then Drowner of Hope and Elder Deep Fiend are kind of the finishers. Drowner of Hope makes those Scions, which is actually really helpful. Plus, we can use those to tap down blockers, get in with our Eldrazi for the win, and then Elder Deep Fiend is kind of our main plan for winning the game. And it's another reason that Matter Reshaper is really good, because we can emerge it, but theoretically, if we get a bunch of artifacts out, we can cast Elder Deep Fiend at full cost, without a merge, without sacking anything, just tapping a bunch of Inspiring Statuaries and our Key to the City and that kind of stuff, cast it normally for like 3 or 4 mana, tap our opponent out, be beat down with all of our stuff. And remember, with Inspiring Statuary, we don't have to spend much real mana on any of these cards. Drowner of Hope, we can technically cast for 1 blue, Thought Knot, Matter Reshaper, just a colorless, and then Elder Deep Fiend, we can even cast for free if we have enough artifacts. So that's kind of our plan for winning. So make a bunch of mana, use that mana to cast really powerful Eldrazi's to close out the game. And then we have some defense as well. Confirm Suspicions is like my favorite card with Inspiring Statuary. It turns Confirm Suspicions into a mana drain, essentially. Not only do you counter a spell, and, of course, you can do it for 2 mana, tapping Inspiring Statuary and Key to the City and that kind of stuff, but you get 3 artifacts, so it generates a bunch of mana. It really is like Mana Drain. You get 3 Mind Stones, essentially, when you resolve a Confirm Suspicions. So a lot of times we can play Inspiring Statuary, maybe on turn 4, we Confirm Suspicion something. That gets us 3 more artifacts, so 3 more mana the next turn, and then we can start chaining together Elder Deep Fiends as early as turn 5 to close out the game. Spell Shrivel, just another counter. 1 mana, sometimes, with Inspiring Statuary, and it hits anything, which is nice. It stops the Healy combo, can hit a Verdurous Gearhulk. There's no real conditions on it, and paying 4 is a lot. Like, it's a lot of mana to pay, so there's very few situations, unless the game goes really, really late, where our opponent's going to be able to pay for a Spell Shrivel. Warping Wail and Scour from existence give us some removal. Warping Wail is mostly there to exile Felidar Guardian. It does manage to kill it because it has a power of only 1. Hits some other random stuff as well, and if we don't need to exile a Felidar Guardian, it's not that kind of matchup, we can sideboard it out, or just make a Scion to sack to our other Eldrazi and so forth. And then Scour is absurdly powerful, but it's high variance because we really need Inspiring Statuary for it to be good. But I really like it as a one-of because it hits anything, and it's completely colorless, so we can often cast it for very little real mana just by tapping a bunch of artifacts. We have more in the sideboard we can bring in, but it answers literally anything from Ulamog to Saheeli combo to a creature land our opponent has at instant speed. So when we have Inspiring Statuary, it's very, very good. Sometimes we risk it rotting in our hand, but it's worth it as a one-of, just kind of a non-conditional removal spell. And then just a couple of Glimmer of Genius, not any real specific purpose. It helps power up our Deadlock Trap by giving us a couple energy. Drawing 2 sometimes for 1 blue mana is pretty good, especially with the scrying. So just helps us find what we need, smooths out our draws a little bit. As far as the mana base, 14 islands, because we do need blue mana for Confirm Suspicions, Drowner of Hope, stuff like that. And then a bunch of different colorless lands. So Ruins of Warrenreef helps us pump up our colorless creatures. And the reason we have all these colorless lands, by the way, is because we need them to cast Matter Reshaper, to cast our Thought Knot Seer, to cast our Warping Wail, some of our sideboard cards. But Ruins pumps up our stuff. Spawning Bed makes a bunch of blockers, which is kind of helpful. Westville Abbey can make some creatures, backup win condition if we flip it around. Blighted Cataract can draw us cards, same with Gyre Reach does some looting, and Seagate Wreckage. So one of the nice things about this deck is because we need the colorless mana, and our deck is built in a way where we can get away with it, we get to play a lot of powerful non-basic lands that give us like some advantages normal decks don't have. If you're playing 2-3 colors, you don't really have the room to play so many colorless lands, but our deck actively wants colorless lands. As far as the sideboard, we get a bunch more removal for creature matchups. So Spatial Contortion, mostly for like green-black type decks. Also Mardu Vehicles, kills a lot in those matchups. Unfortunately, it does not get Heart of Kirin, does not get Felidar Guardian, which are 2 big threats we really want to answer. Scour from Existence does get anything, and Warping Wail is primarily for the Felidar Guardian matchups. We go up to the full 4 copies, so we have more ways of exiling the Felidar Guardian to prevent the combo. Negate, Horribly Awry, and Dispel. These help against any spell-based decks. Also, depending on the build, can be good against the copycat decks that are bringing in all the Planeswalkers. Horribly Awry, good against green-black and Mardu Vehicles, because it exiles essentially all the creatures in their deck and counters them for just 2 mana. And then Dispel, you might as well play it. It's good in spell-based matchups. And that is Inspiring U-Drazi for Standard. And that's our budget magic deck for this week. So, this deck is really sweet. It plays a lot of cards that I really like. I love Inspiring Statuary. It's one of my favorite cards in Standard. And this deck does a really good job of harnessing its power. Just the little synergies of Inspiring Statuary with Key to the City for card advantage and Confirm Suspicions into mana drain. All that stuff is so good, and the Eldrazi offer a really legitimate plan for closing out the game. and they're just very good. We kind of go bigger than just about any popular deck in Standard at the moment. So if we can disrupt our opponent just enough, we kind of go over the top, tap them out with Elder Deep Fiend, and then once we get to the Elder Deep Fiend point of the game, it doesn't take long before we just beat our opponent down with a bunch of big Eldrazi and close out the game in a turn or two. Drowner of Hope helps us stay alive against things like Verdurous Gearhulk that get really big. The deck is really fun, it's really sweet, and I don't know, I really enjoyed playing it. I think this is a good way to use Inspiring Statuary, which is just one of those cards that feels so powerful that it's kind of sad that it hasn't really seen any competitive play in Standard yet, because it just reads like such an absurdly powerful card. Anyway, that's our Budget Magic deck for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the gameplay videos, and I will talk to you soon. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, take a second and click that like button down below. It's a great way to help support the channel for free, and you can find the next video in the playlist right here.